So I'm going to hand things over now to Tom Cramer, who is Associate University Librarian for Library Technology at Stanford University Libraries. And Tom's going to be providing an overview of the pod tool. So over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Matthew. Just a second to get things shared appropriately.
Looks great. Thank you.
All right. Well, I want Matthew and Marie and the other organizers, thank you very much. It's exciting to be part of the forum and to share some developments that have been happening on a project within the Ivy Plus Libraries Confederation, which is POD. That's the Platform for Open Data. And just as a note of background, in 2019, the IPLC launched an effort to try to understand how it might enhance discovery for Borrow Direct, which is our interlibrary loan program, which is currently we're using Relay D2D, and the most advanced discovery we have is based on Z3950, another standard, but not a modern or high performance one. And the challenge that we face is what's the best way to aggregate data from 13 institutions to meet IPLC's consortial needs. We were originally called Platform for Open Discovery, but as we got further and further into it, we realized that discovery was overly limiting. And so that's how POD was born. Here's a brief mission statement, but basically we recognized that we didn't want to solve just for discovery, but we wanted to create a platform where data aggregation and reuse would become strategic assets within the IPLC or the Ivy Plus Confederation's portfolio. We wanted to approach this through open and iterative development, and we wanted to spend time not only on developing the data as an asset, but our collective staff capacities and know-how. So in other words, what we were looking to do is gather data from the 13 institutions. We wanted to pool that data, enrich it in varying ways to meet different use cases, and then deploy that. We don't see this as building a single application or a single stack, but rather getting data to where it needs to go to meet varying needs. In terms of overall approach, we really wanted to reduce the friction that data-based or data-intensive initiatives required by pre-pooling it and enabling innovation. We wanted to build our staff capacity, and we really wanted to make not only discovery better, faster, and cheaper, but the next initiative and the initiative after that and the initiative after that. So we didn't have to go back to the drawing board each time we had an idea about what we could do if we compared data across our sites. I want to briefly mention the notion of a data lake because it's not incredibly new, but it's also not something that a lot of people may have encountered before. And as opposed to a data warehouse or other systems of highly structured data that are optimized for one particular use, a data lake tries to suck in as much data as possible in as many formats or different types of structures as possible, and not worry about pre-optimizing for query or particular purpose. And the idea is once you have the data, then you can apply schema on read, or you can basically structure the data after you've gathered it to make sure that it addresses your questions. And this is really a liberating notion and prospect if you adopt it. So kind of a very slim architectural diagram. So it might look like 13 institutions providing MARC data, starting with bibliographic data, but we think we will not end there. Normalizing that to the extent that's needed because interlibrary loan and discovery has a specific set of needs and uses. But then going through and enabling further downstream optimization and say from an upper lake to a middle lake to a lower lake, and then export that to tools such as Tableau or GoldRush or Greenglass or whatever the needs may be. As we've been talking within IPLC, we've identified that there are at least 3 distinct clusters of use cases. So the ones that have emerged are resource discovery, access, and sharing. There's also a huge cluster of use cases around collection analysis and decision support. And there's finally a third kind of more open-ended, more futuristic one, which is as we start to gather our data, what are ways that we might actually enhance the data itself as an asset worthy of enriching over time? So initiatives like data mining, application of linked data, assignment of URIs, or the application of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I won't go through these and you'll have access to the slide deck, but some of the ones that have emerged over about 1 to 2 years of conversations and kind of organic use case development are listed here. So things like potential ERM analysis and pooling, serials analysis for copyright status, special collections, some of the things we've also heard about today. In terms of collections analysis, the Ivy Plus did have a one-time effort to feed Goldrush. What we realized that there's a lot of friction just setting up a good analysis. And if we could set up a feed to Goldrush or other collections analysis tool fed off of a continuously updated data lake, it would really facilitate future work. We've had 2 known use cases of data mining that are already relevant to POD, and things like informing decisions like to digitize, to preserve, to replace lost items have come up. POD is a running system. If you go to pod.stanford.edu, you can see a very light web interface. It's possible to upload bibliographic item and holdings data, upload it via various mechanisms, support for full dumps and incremental changes. We built in an initial set of data profiling tools and also kind of statistical analysis just on the transport of data. Our colleagues at Penn University gave a wonderful demonstration of how local discovery can be enhanced if you pull in data from additional sources. So in this 2020 proof of concept, they had all of Penn's bibliographic records, and they loaded in about 43 million additional records from other Ivy Plus institutions. And instead of going out to a Z3950 interface or some separate search interface, they actually start the search within Penn. And if you find 0 records or you want to expand your search, you can go out to the other members of Ivy Plus. So it's a great demonstration of what happens and what's possible once the data becomes co-located. POD is currently made a lot of progress in growing organically, and we are just finalizing our 22 development work cycle now. All of the code is open source, and the link to the code base is on the next slide. And really over the next 6 months, we're anticipating going into production and populating the feed to ILL, our ILL system. After that, we're planning to spend concerted effort in branching out to other use cases. And here are just a few links to end with. So you can find the interface there, the code repository. And if anyone has questions or would like to follow up, this is the group list for the project board, or you can reach out to me directly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate that, and managing to keep within the tight time frame as well. So our final presenter is Kirsten Leonard, who is Executive Director of the Private Academic Library Network of Indiana. Kirsten is going to be discussing a grant PALNI received to explore bib data management options. Thank you, Kirsten.
Thank you all so much as well. And I know we've got a short amount of remaining time, so I'll blow through this. Again, as Tom said, our slides will be available. And I'm also going to be on a panel session at the upcoming joint Rosemont partnership meeting, so you can look for me there. And I'm also planning to be at the Pan water cooler on Monday. So this project is made possible by a grant from the U.S. Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS, and administered by the Indiana State Library. They provided us with $225,000 in funds to examine our options around bibliographic management systems. And just a really quick overview of this, it's a planning project. So it's a planning to explore equitable, sustainable, and open bibliographic data management options. So it's going to both explore and aggregate our existing needs and what the options are for low-cost, openly available cataloging, data management, and creation tools. So this is the bib data creation starting point. It's also going to investigate the rights and limitations of current metadata sharing and inventory openly available metadata sources. We're going to gather specifications and the feasibility of these existing infrastructures to share bibliographic data. And we're also going to develop principles for community governance and business models to sustain an equitable, sustainable, and open option. This project intersects with PAN's interests in the sense that it helps expose the holdings of institutions that are facing economic pressure, including many public libraries. The Indiana funding in the state is because many are priced out of current bibliographic systems. So that bibliographic data lack leads to lack of data holdings to help us do analysis on retention gaps. It also has many other uses. It's interesting to hear all of the projects prior to this that are all talking about the ability to access and be, am I still there?
Yes, your slides just went off presenter mode, that's all.
I'm not sure what happened there.
Yep.
Let me start again. Oops. Sorry, let me just try this one more time. My apologies. And of course, when we're short on time.
That's okay.
Probably hit something I shouldn't have. All right.
Yep, there we go. Thanks.
There we go. One more time. Let's see. Oh, and the other thing I just want to call it as well, we participated in the CCH project that was mentioned earlier by Heather. We've also pledged to intersect with that project. There's already communities, as you can see, in all of these various projects. So this project may be a good gathering point for this specific use purpose. And so why is PALNI pursuing this? So PALNI, we're 23 small private colleges in the Midwest. Right now, this focus is on college affordability. We were 24 just last year, but we had 2 of our institutions merge as the institutions themselves are trying to do everything that they can to be innovative in order to control costs and produce college affordability. PALNI has been all in on this all along. Frankly, that's how PALNI was formed. We've done other affordable education programs, including our textbook program. So this is just another space where we're trying to leverage our partnerships internally and externally to do whatever we can to be transformative and innovative to thrive, in the face of what we're seeing as this ongoing retraction of higher education funding and library funding in particular, as well as a retraction, I think, in the ongoing influence of the library and the institutional mission. We're seeing reductions now in staff as well as library funding, and we're seeing that in institutions of all sizes. I saw the NC, I think it's the NC State one most recently announced. So the way we see it is these existing business governance and cost structures and the technology, all of those must be radically transformed to deal with this level of imminent funding declines. And really fundamentally, PALNI, we're in all OCLC shop right now, we're deeply concerned that we're not going to be able to afford our current bibliographic management subscriptions in the next 5 years. So why? As we mentioned many of these different projects have talked about this, these efforts to create community-owned software solutions, and the idea of being able to use those to specifically reduce our dependence on closed systems. That's interesting. I've seen that theme resonate through many of these discussion points. Right now, there's a gap in this sense of what is an open, large bibliographic record data lake, to use Tom's term there, but where can we both create and access data that's created by others? So having flexible and open systems that allow libraries to support new ways of sharing their staff, their information, their data, and reducing their costs. And they should be built on governance and business models that are transparent with granular contribution levels, and that they're focused on a cost recovery basis. So the primary outputs of this project are expected to be first, a broad group of stakeholders. It starts because it's an Indiana funded project with this idea of building stakeholders in Indiana, both academic and public libraries. But certainly, and in any project of this scale, you're going to engage with other library groups going forward. So some of the groups that we're already engaging with besides PAN and CCH, the Partnership for Shared Book Collections, ICOLC, the International Coalition of Library Consortia, and other Indiana groups and library groups across the US. We're going to produce a report on the community needs for a low-cost bibliographic management entity. We're going to report on currently available bibliographic utilities, data sources, costs, use permissions, and extensibility. And we're going to define a minimally viable product feature set. So focused on what is good enough. Pragmatic was the term I think policy folks used. We're right there with you in that line, that what are the key things that we need to move forward. and design wireframes, cost estimates, governance and business structures, et cetera, that could be used to move us forward. We're just beginning to engage with other products in this space. I've had a conversation with George. Tom and I are planning to connect as well. Certainly, if there's other initiatives that you're aware of, we'd love to know about it. And just a point, this is not envisioned as a replacement of WorldCat in WorldCat's bibliographic services. It's not meant to be the large database. It's really meant to be an affordability and access point. So it's going to focus on open and affordable solutions that allow us to be flexible, and other avenues of architecture are highly desired that are going to result in lower costs. So if there's a distributed model rather than an aggregated model, things, the ISO type that, those other kinds of interfaces, I think that's something that we would want to leverage. Lightweight technology that's going to reduce duplication and leverage that work of the individual libraries. So that good enough technology to meet those evolving needs. And in addition, we're going to look at how record matching and whether or not unique identifiers are needed in this space. So somewhere between the friction that Tom was saying in the prescribed use versus let's just have a big massive data that we can access and leverage as we need moving forward. So that's a quick 100 view flyover. Like I said, I'll be at the PAN meeting if there's any additional questions.
Thank you, Kirsten. Sorry to rush you at the end.
That's fine.
Would you mind just stop sharing a minute, and then I'll just have my final slide. Just to thank all the today's presenters for their presentations. The slides and a recording from today will be added to the PAN website. Again, just a reminder that the water cooler is happening on Monday. And I did just want to make one quick announcement to thank Mark Jacobs, the Executive Director of the Washington Research Library Consortium, who's retiring in May. I just wanted to thank Mark for all his efforts and leadership in shared print, both with the WRC, Scholars Trust and Rosemont. Enjoy your retirement, Mark, and thank you for all your efforts. So thank you again for everyone attending. Look out for more information regarding our next forum in June, and I hope you all have a good rest of the day. Thank you again.